Hello and welcome to this Carveco tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at creating and machining a piece that is larger than your CNC table. Been asked this many times before, and just to do a basic, simple job, just 2 parts with Carveco Maker. Now in Carveco Maker Plus, you've got tiling where you can tile as many pieces together, but just to do a simple job, you can do that in Carveco Maker with just a few simple steps. So let's jump right into the software and take a look how you can do this.
Okay, so I've now switched over onto Carveco Maker, and you can see that I've got a basic design. All that it is a rectangle that's been rounded. I've got a bit of text that's been rotated 90 degrees. It's been welded together. And I've also created some more text for the measuring stick. And I've also inserted these markers, which are all offset using the block copy rotate at the exact size. And they also come past the edge, because when I'm using the V-Bit, I don't want to get any cusps where it touches the edge. So I need to make sure that it comes past the edge. So to do this in 2 halves, as you can see, I've got my X for the model is actually 9.5 inches and the Y is 48.5 inches in height. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this. The first way is to basically put the sheet or the length of wood that you have on the CNC and then pull it through the CNC. Now I couldn't do that because I didn't want to move the CNC machine because I had no room at the back of the CNC. So the other way that you can do this is to rotate it by 180 degrees, which is the method that I used. There are a couple of ways to line it up. One way is just literally using a marker on the table, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And also the other way is to use dowels. Now the dowels have to go through the material and into the wasteboard so you can line it up, obviously. Right, so here you can see if I click on it that I've got a model. If you take a look down the bottom right hand side, that's 42.42 inches, and this is too big for my machine, so I need to split this up into 2. So if I move everything down, let's say to there, just using the arrow keys to do that. And then I'm going to draw a line that's around about 20 inches. It's not accurate whatsoever. This is just literally by eye. And then press Control down just to get an angle snap and just draw it. Now, if you wanted to line this up just literally by marking it on the table, then all that you need to do is do that line, and then what I would do is move that down so it snaps. Probably move that down so it's on that marker there, and then I would create another one at the bottom one. So let's create another line from there, hold Control down, bring that across, go into node editing, move that over, and then what I would do is select all of that and then just move it up using the arrow keys, just so the whole thing is on there. And then on your wasteboard, mark up this first line with a pen. Then we would machine this bottom part up to here. And then select everything, deselect that one, and then move from there down to there. And then you can machine this part. It'll be a lot clearer when we do the next stage so you can see what this is actually doing. So let me just undo that to go back to where we were. Now if you don't want to do that, what you need to do is add dowels. So that's what I done, and I find it more accurate, to be completely honest. So I'm going to add some 1/4 inch dowels, click create. Now these can be absolutely anywhere over here, and I'm going to click and create a copy. So press Control down and Alt, and it maintains an angle snap. And then I can just move that over with the arrow keys, let's say to about there. Now, I don't want these dowels to be exactly on my 0 because obviously I might not be able to reach over because I'll need this to overshoot just a touch. So what I'm going to do is just select all, press Ctrl A. I'm just going to move that up, and maybe I'll just get this one marker in here. So with that done, what I'm going to do is then go into node editing, which is here, and I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to cut vector. So it creates a cut there, and I'm going to do the same here. Now these can be anywhere as long as they're somewhere near this line. What I want to do is basically overshoot, because I don't want to basically come to exactly the same place for the tool and then have two cusps where the radius of the tool is. So I need it to come past both places. So what I'm going to do is select this top one, and then I'm going to grab that node, press Alt down on the keyboard, and I'm going to make sure that I come just slightly past the other vector. So I've basically got two vectors over the top of each other. And then do the same with this one, bring it down to there. So now if I select these, I've got that, and you can see it's going past this line, and I've got that, and that's also going past the line. So that's going to work when we machine this. Now what I also done was created an area clearance for these pieces. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial because you basically just want to see how this is flipped and turned around. And the reason that I've done that was because I didn't want these small pieces to fly out the machine, because I didn't tape it down, which I should have done. Main reason was because of all these markers. It wasn't completely flat and they were giving me different depths. So if I were to do this again, I would stick this down. Right, so let's get machining. So I'm going to delete that line. I don't need that any longer. Go to Toolpaths, and I'm going to do a V-Bit carving. So let's select that. Now you can see that it's also selected the 3 down the bottom, so it's selecting all of the text. So I don't want that. So I need to right click, and I'm going to ungroup vectors. Then I can select the 4, 5, and the date. I'm going to select tool. So I'm just going to use a 60-degree V-bit. Click refresh, make sure that you haven't got any vector intersections. And then let's define the material. So let's say this is 3/4, and then calculate now. And that creates the V-bit carving. So what I can do is simulate that toolpath, and it gives me the carving. Okay, so all good. Right, so what we need to do now is create a V-bit carving for all these markers. So let's delete that. And then I'm going to draw, let's turn that off. I'm going to draw a box around there. And then I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to deselect that. And then let's just do a profile toolpath. And this has got to be a lung. And I'm going to do this, let's try 85. Select a tool, 60-degree V-bit, and then calculate now. I'll just call that markers 1, and then I'm going to simulate that toolpath. Okay, so turn on the vectors. These two, I actually want those to be a little bit deeper. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call that markers 2. Double click on it, and I'm going to select those two. And let's do this. Let's say 0.1. Click calculate, and then simulate that. And you can see that they're just a little bit more pronounced. I simulate the V-bit carving, and That's pretty much all of the V-Bit carving. Right, so what I need to do now is cut the part out. I also need to do something which is the most important part of this whole thing, which is do the holes. So let's do the holes. So what I'm going to do is select that, and then let's do a profile toolpath. It's a 1/4 inch, so use a smaller tool. I don't want to just go straight down with this. So I want a profile on the inside, finish depth. So I'm going to go into the wasteboard now. So let's do this, let's say 1 inch. So I'm going to have a 1/4 inch of the dowel in the wasteboard. Now this is really important. If you don't do this, then basically your dowel will be just going into the wood and it won't be able to slot into anything. So it's basically sort of making a jig on the wasteboard. Make sure that you're not over any T-rails or anything like that. Make sure that you have actually got some wood there. If you haven't, or you don't want to go into the wasteboard, you can always add another piece of wood underneath this prior to actually starting machining. So you basically go into the other piece of wood. Entirely up to you. So let's select a tool. I'm going to use, let's say, my 1/8. And then I'm going to add ramping. I'm going to spiral this in. So it basically goes down as a spiral. And then click calculate. And let's simulate this. You can see it spiraling down. So that is probably the first thing that I'm going to machine, and make sure that those dowels fit in there okay. Right, so let's machine the part out. So let's select the outside shape. And I'm going to do a profile toolpath on the outside. Now, if you do this and it machines on the inside, even though you've told it to machine on the outside, this is all to do with whether the vector's clockwise or anti-clockwise. So if it's going the wrong way, what you need to do is right click and reverse vectors. So I'm going to go outside and let's see what this does. I'm going to go 0.7, let's say 6, because I don't want to have like an onion skin on this, because I don't really want to do any sanding on this afterwards, especially in the parts where the name is. So let's select a tool. Let's use my Jenny 1/4 inch, and I'm going to add ramping. Let's zigzag this in. Also going to add bridges. So let's say 0.1 and 0.1. 2D bridges, let's add them and let's edit them, because those two especially are not really in a very good place. So let me move that around, let's say to there. Move that one around to there. I'll be able to sand those off. Okay, so let's calculate that. And then I can close that. Now you can see that this is machining on the inside. So that's not what I want. So what I need to do is right click, reverse vectors. And the start point has gone to this side now because it's going anti-clockwise. So now if I calculate that again, it's on the outside. So just bear that in mind if you're doing this and it's going on the wrong side. Right, so let's simulate all of these toolpaths. And you can see that it's cut out the edges there. Okay, so that looks okay. So let's concentrate on this top half first. I'm going to stick this on the machine and get machining. And then we'll come back afterwards, flip it and get machining the bottom half. So the first thing that I'm going to do is machine the holes for the dowels. Just make sure that those fit in there. Now remember, this is going beyond the material, going into the wasteboard. So make sure that you spiral into this, because otherwise you're going to have a burnt out tool. And just try them in there afterwards, just make sure that they actually fit, because you don't want to do this and then take it off and realise that they don't actually fit. So once that's completed, what we can do is move the gantry out of the way, take off the clamps, clean everything down, and then we can flip it around and put the dowels in. And that should be in exactly the correct spot. What we need to do now is flip this around. So let's delete the simulation, turn on the toolpaths again, and what I'm going to do is save that as top. So this is just so I don't get mixed up. And what I'm going to do as well is rename all of these to be top. So let's turn all of these off. And what I'm going to do now is to select all of these and I'm going to copy them over here. So just press Control on the keyboard and copy them. Then what I'm going to do is go to Transform and I'm going to press Alt down on the keyboard, or you could just enter it here, and I'm going to rotate this around 180 degrees. Then what I'm going to do is select all of these except these two holes, and I'm going to delete them. Then select these and I'm going to zoom in on this hole, and then I should be able to snap to the center. So when you get that marker, that means that you're on the center. So select it in the center and zoom back out, zoom back in, and then you want to drop it on this center. Right, so with that flipped around, you should have another half here. So what we're going to do is duplicate this, and I'm going to call this bottom. Double click on it. And we're going to select those two and calculate. Let's duplicate this. Call that bottom. Double click on it. So let's select those. Select that. Probably a good idea to group all these together. I'm just going to calculate.
And continue to duplicate each toolpath, remembering to rename it and selecting the correct vectors. You don't need to duplicate the Profile Toolpath for the dowels, so I'm just going to rename that one, just so we know. As I calculate the final Profile Toolpath, you'll notice it's done the same thing again. It wants to cut the inside of the shape, so I'm just going to select Reverse Vectors.
And then I can simulate that one, simulate that one, simulate that one, and then simulate that one. And that's the cut. So when you send this to the CNC machine, this will line up because of those two dowels that you moved around. Now, if you wanted to do this by basically moving it through the CNC machine, it's almost the same sort of process. So what you do is create your holes for the dowels, and then what you need to do is machine these two and then calculate that. Then you've got the two holes there. So this is going to machine into the wasteboard, and then what you do at the same time, you need to machine two more holes. Now I'm going to move these down a little bit because they're a bit too far away. Let's say there. Now these two don't need to go into the wasteboard, so these just go through the material. Now what you would do is machine it like I have shown you, so do all of the V-bit carving, do the profile cut, and then what you do is if you select everything and then deselect the two holes and then zoom in on this one, snap to the center, zoom out, zoom back into this one, and then snap to the center there. And then that allows you to do the second part. So that's how you move it down the machine. Right, so let's go back to the flip part now. Let's get this over to the CNC, get it cut, and let's see how it lines up. So I hope that you found this tutorial useful for doing jobs that are larger than your CNC machine. So take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.